This game is no longer available in the Steam store. Did you ever come across this message? If you're new to the world of gaming, perhaps you were spared the shock, but if you play games for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it is more likely than not that you own a handful of games no longer purchasable on Steam. This did not happen with physical media, since, well, no matter how long it has been since you last opened the box, the game disc or cartridge is always there. There is no way that Nintendo will ever steal from me my copy of Splatoon for the Wii U, despite the service going down. The reasons why games get delisted on online stores are many, some bad, some worse, a practice that hardly ever makes anybody happy. In my opinion, there should be no reason for any digital game to get removed from stores. Game preservation is cultural preservation, and we have to defend this principle. But first things first, roll the intro. A couple of weeks ago, I played and completed Crysis 2, a title I had on my library for many years that I lost track of. A very nice game, not a masterclass like the first one, but definitely a solid experience I would recommend. When I opened the Steam page to write a review, I noticed the infamous message: Crysis 2 is no longer available on the Steam store. The reason why the first 3 original Crysis games were delisted on Steam is unknown. Nah, just kidding, it's because the remastered versions were released between 2021 and 2022. Versions of the games more expensive and definitely more appealing to the modern audience. For the record, I bought Crysis 2 on a Steam sale for probably under €5. The remastered is currently 30, and on sale it was never lower than 15. Sometimes the reason for the delisting is given by the fact that a game was moved to a different digital store. Rocket League and Fall Guys can still be played via Steam, but are no longer purchasable there, but rather available on the Epic Games store. This is not the worst, since the games transferred over can still be played, but it is definitely annoying for those who wish to have a sold digital library. But unfortunately for us, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are various games delisted on all digital stores that do not have a port, games that are de facto erased from the face of the earth and are no longer acquirable, in some cases not even playable. Ubisoft's The Crew is an infamous example. The online game was removed from everyone's digital libraries, and not even the disc version can give you access to the game, not even to the single player. Do you see the gameplay recording on screen? This is all I have left of the game, a 5-hour recording that I use from time to time in my videos. For the first Overwatch, I do not even have that luxury. What you see on screen are my friend's clips of Overwatch 2, since the first title simply no longer exists. One can argue that the sequel is more of a deluxe version of the first, free-to-play version at that, sure, but to think that the Game Awards 2016 GOTY simply no longer exists is truly sad. This epidemic does not only affect multiplayer games. Players around my age will remember Telltale Games, a now defunct game development studio known for its licensed point-and-click adventures. Back to the Future the video game is one I truly enjoyed, a game you will never play, since nearly all games produced by Telltale are no longer available on Steam or anywhere else. And what about all digital games made for other consoles with no longer online functionalities, that's a place to buy and download them? Affordable Space Adventure is a game I truly enjoyed playing on my Wii U, but the only way to obtain the game now is via unorthodox means. The eShop is long gone, and no discs were ever made of this game. You get the gist, many are the games that are considered lost media, some delisted deliberately by whomever owned the rights. Many are the list lines that go through all extinct games, from Driver San Francisco to Streets of Kamurocho, so if you seek more examples, check out these websites. But how is it possible that in a digital era like the one we're living in, there is such a thing like lost media? In some cases, such as delisted games on Steam, the game files are still on the cloud. They can be downloaded and re-downloaded multiple times without limits. I bought Crysis 2 a decade ago and I was still able to download and play it, despite not being purchasable. So, what gives? How can there be scarcity when these games are in digital form, not even occupying that much space? As alluded earlier, the reasons are mainly economical, either to sell a re-release or a sequel. Why keep on hosting the service for The Crew when there is the more expensive The Crew 2? Why sell Yakuza 0 when there is Yakuza 0's Director's Cut? I don't think I have to explain why this is bad for us consumers. We're all happy when an old game gets to be re-released with hopefully some upgrades, yet that does not mean that the original product has to vanish from the face of the earth. Just because a novel was reprinted, it does not mean that the OG print is worthless, quite the contrary. The thing that I find more baffling is when a game with no direct remake is no longer sold. Sure, Telltale no longer exists, but the rights of her IP were bought by someone. Why will LCG or Universal not want to make money from an already existing game? Sure, a digital store like Steam would still take a share of the profits, but any profits are better than none. Here's where we touch a complex topic that is licensing agreements. Now, I'm not a lawyer, nor will I pretend to be one. I respect you too much to pretend I'm an expert on the matter. What I can say is that titles like Telltale's that are based on already existing franchises do need to make written agreements with third parties to make their games in the first place. These agreements not only stipulate what the developers can and cannot do with their brands, but also most importantly how the money made by the game is shared between parties. I assume that for titles like Back to the Future the video game, the profits were split between Telltale and Universal, with other royalties perhaps going to the actors, music labels, and of course the digital stores. When Telltale closed and it was acquired by LCG, it would seem that the new owners didn't like the terms of the deals made with Universal, and by discontinuing the agreement, the game could no longer be sold. Again, I'm not diving into that rabbit hole, but one thing is for certain, there is a complete, solid title that cannot be legally played, meaning that every party loses, no one makes the money, we don't play the game. To say this game is no longer available on the Steam store is in my opinion absurd, regardless of the reason, because it assumes the equally absurd premise that digital scarcity is not only a reality, but inevitable. The European Citizen Initiative that I've signed, Stop Killing Games, tackles this very same issue, and it seeks ways for titles not to disappear from Steam and other digital stores. If fans can and do find ways to keep games alive, such as emulation and homebrewing, developers can certainly find paths, even behind a paywall, to keep their products available to the greater public. Games that heavily depend on the online scene could be made open source and allow groups of people to host their own private servers. If fans were able to bring back Concord back to life, surely anything is possible. Games that have a remake or remastered version could be sold as classics or original, and games that on older consoles could be ported over with newer hardware. For titles that find themselves in a deadlock between endless licensing agreements and no longer existing studios, such as the case for Back to the Future, should be made free to play. If any product owner is unwilling or incapable to renew an agreement, the public should not be the one facing the consequences, the title owner should. There could be a grace period for a couple of years to sort everything out, but in general, game developers and IP owners should be forced to comply with new protection laws that treat video game integrity to a similar level to other cultural media preservation. Yes, I know there is a new The Political Machine covering the 2024 American presidential elections, but the 2016 edition not only is a fun game to play even to this day, but it is culturally important, since it encapsulates the main characters, topics, and events that took place 9 years ago. Perhaps not all games have such a cultural intertwine with the real-world events, but by definition every game is a window to the past, an art form made in a specific time frame in a specific location, part of our human history. I understand that nothing is forever, but in a digital era where preservation is not only possible but widely accessible, there should be little to no excuse to try our best. This game is no longer available is a message I wish never to read again in one of my videos. I know I might have been a bit late to the discussion wave, but I believe gaming preservation is an extremely important topic, one that deserves to be brought up and again until something is done about it. What specifically, I do not know. Despite playing Lawgivers 2, I'm no lawmaker, but I do know something can indeed be done to prevent these situations in the future. Crysis 2 is a great title, definitely not as great as the first one, but still a fun one to play. I did not play the remastered, nor will I ever, and if you think you should also be able to play the original one like I did, speak up, and let your opinion be heard. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one too many libraries times for watching today's video. Gaming preservation is a topic that I treasure, and sharing my 2 cents on the topic is one way to raise awareness, even months after a European petition. What do you think about the issue of gaming preservation? I wish you all a wonderful day, and until next time, arrivederci.